So let me go ahead and start by introducing myself. My name is Bob Miller, and I am one of the two assistant superintendents here at Pasadena City College. My responsibility is business and college services, and Dr. Bob Bell, who is my compatriot in all things good for students, is here somewhere. Dr. Bell? Well, we'll introduce him. Maybe he's out in the hall for a second, but we'll introduce him when he comes back in here. Yesterday, we had the first of our two visioning sessions. We had over 100 people here in the room, and we had a very, very active day. It was actually a full day of activities. And today, we have advertised far and wide to get members of the community here. We know it's always tough on a Saturday morning, so this is sort of the first of our approaches to this. And I think in the future, we're going to actually go back out into the communities a little bit more. But my job today is actually very, very, very little. I'm just here to introduce two people. The first one is Mindy Craig. Mindy is with Blue Point Planning, and some of you may remember Mindy when she was helping us with our educational master plan. So Mindy has come back to help us kick off our Centennial Facilities Master Planning process. And then Dr. Mark Roach, who's our superintendent president, who's going to have some opening remarks. And then Mindy's going to take us through a process here. We also have the three planning architect firms that we have brought to this process to help us kickstart the actual Centennial Facilities Master Plan activity itself, and Mindy will speak more about that. So without further ado, I do want to make some quick introductions. So we have several of our board members here. We have Dr. Jeanette Mann is here, Board of Trustees. We have Ms. Linda Waugh, one of our board members here. We have John Martin is here, another one of our board members. And we have Dr. Ross Selvage is here. And who else? Oh, and then Belinda Brown is here, another one of our board members. So for those of you who are Brown Act concerned, this is a Brown Act meeting, and it's been posted accordingly. So we have lots of our board members here. Anyway, thank you very much, and I apologize, Belinda, for not seeing you there. Okay, so Dr. Roach, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good morning. Looking forward to having a kind of a coffee chat with you. Yesterday we had a great day, and today we have a smaller group, but just as important. So I wanted to make some comments about where we are and where we're going and why we're trying to go there. First, let me just make a couple of notes of gratitude and some further introductions. Assistant Superintendent Miller referred to our other Assistant Superintendent of Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Bob Bell. Just want to thank Bob. And of course, I think, oh, there he is. And we want to recognize the Executive Director of Facility Services, Ruben Smith. Ruben, I do want to really underline Ruben, because he really is the one who is responsible for the engineering of this process. And as all of us know, it's really as the process is most important. Ruben is an extraordinary man, a civil engineer by trade, and I think that we have constructed one of the best processes that I have ever seen in order to do the kind of planning for a major program like this. Let's see. Oh, I did want to introduce, we have a member of our PCC Foundation, Greg Sonnen and his wife Nora here, and we thank them. And the co-chair of the President's African American Advisory Committee, Dolores Higginbotham. And all of you are distinguished dignitaries to us. We really thank you for taking the time. And the fact that it's a smaller group will actually kind of give your voice a little bit more time today. So, and also, I won't go through the introductions, but one of the really neat things about today is we have a process in which we have invited, or actually selected, because they are preeminent in their field, 3 architect firms, planners, who are very experienced in that, in this. One is HGA, our friends from HGA, and AC Martin, who has done so much work here at PCC, including our glorious Center for the Arts, and the folks from Gensler are here. These are three preeminent firms, and so they are here with their teams, and so much more than just kind of a chat session. You're here with the planning architects and be able to input to professionals in this field your views. And of course, out of the process will come their visions and their recommendations for what we should do moving forward. Okay. So with all that, I have the privilege, and I am going to take the time to offer a little bit of a history lesson, okay? Because I think in history, we need to know where we've been in order to know where we're going. And I actually personally have been in and around the Pasadena community since at least 1987, when I lived here while I was doing my doctoral dissertation at the University of Southern California and doing my original research at the Huntington Library. And that was one of the just, paradise moments of my life. And so many of you have been in Pasadena, around Pasadena for a long time, you realize what a special place it is architecturally. And there's a reason for that, because the people who came here, founded the city, founded this college, had a vision. I wanted to, this is PCC was founded in 1924. So this is our 90th anniversary year, 90 years. We're one of the oldest community colleges in the United States. But we're actually older than that, because this is an actual photograph from 1912. And the college was actually founded, or the roots of the college go back now 102 years, when these three buildings that are still there, this was originally called Horace Mann Hall, all right? And I don't know whether this is stage right or stage left, but this is Jane Addams Hall, the Nobel Prize winner, and this is Louis Agassiz Hall, natural scientists, okay? This photograph was taken 102 years ago, and this was founded as Pasadena High School, okay? Now imagine the founding people, I say founding fathers, and most of them were founding fathers at that time, but imagine the founders of building a high school like this. Okay, so they really had some remarkable vision. Okay, so the other photograph is about from about 1926. All right, the college was founded in 1924. This is an aerial photograph of that. The college was founded in 1924. And this photograph was taken a couple years afterwards, okay? And what became Pasadena High School out on the west, and John Muir High School, they were established. And this became Pasadena Junior College in 1924. This aerial photograph will show you what it looks like about 88 years ago. And you see, it was not built for parking lots. And again, the original buildings are there. And you just kind of get a sense of what the founders were trying to establish here. Now, 102 years later, these buildings are still there. Okay? And so one of the questions, one of the issues that we need to talk about is how do we stay attached to this past, which clearly we want to do, and yet move forward into the future, this dynamic 21st century future. And I say that this attachment to the past is not just rhetoric, because that was 1926. That was the year that this man, John Harbison, our longest serving president, began as president. In those days, they called him principal, okay? And John Harbison served from 1926 to 1950, okay? He brought this college through the Depression, through the World War, through Korea. So on any day when I'm feeling sorry for myself about what I do for a living, I look at what President Harbison did, and I had to go through. Well, Harbison no sooner became president and the Depression hit. And you can read some of his letters. They look like, our letters, our memos from 3 or 4 years ago during those budget cuts, and going, oh my goodness, we have to cut the budget, we have to cut counselors, and so on. So you have the Depression. In 1933, the Long Beach earthquake happened. Long Beach earthquake, those 3 beautiful buildings right there, were destroyed. Destroyed. Couldn't go in them. The college operated for over 2 years in tents on this lawn, while Harbison decided not just, now this is the middle of the Depression, money was dear, and Harbison decided not just to put up regular old school buildings, but essentially to put those 3 buildings back up essentially the way they were. Pretty remarkable thing. And he did it. And in fact, this is Harbison welcoming, this is a photograph is taken in 1942. Harbison himself is in front of Horace Mann Hall, and he's welcoming Esther Nishio. Esther Nishio is still alive, still in our community, and she was one of the students who was interned in the camps. And Harbison, who was a Quaker, fought his own church to get Esther Nishio back. And that was the day he welcomed her back. We are the first we're the first college in the United States to welcome a student back from the camps. So there's 2 prevailing ideas at the heart of PCC, right? Social justice, as symbolized by this handshake right here. Social justice, helping you up the stairs, these grand stairs. So few community colleges have this grand steps that you walk up anymore to enter the halls of higher education. Social justice and innovation. I could go on for hours, but you know that PCC, some of you may remember this, PCC was the first and the only 4-year junior college in the United States. We started on the 644 plan. Everything old is new again. In Pasadena school district at that time, you went to elementary school for 6 years. You went to 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, 4 years. And then you went to PJC, which was 11th, 12th, freshman, sophomore. And that stopped in the early 50s, but many of our alums still remember it. And actually, in some ways, we're going back to that in our relationship with PUSD, with this, dual enrollment and early middle college, high school, and so on and so forth. So we have that innovation. We have social justice and innovation in our DNA. Okay. So obviously, not what's off the table, but what's on the table is this. We're going to continue in our master planning. We're going to continue to respect this. But as you look at the development of the college since then, right, it has been various. And in some ways, not in complete consonance with that spirit. Now what we want is our grand past, which is going to be there and is going to stay there, to be an organic part of our future. And that's where you come in. And that's where your input is so vital. So I just have a minute or 2 more, but I wanted to set out, we talk about on staff some kind of guiding principles and questions. So if this kind of helps, jog your brainstorming today, that will be that'd be great, And we really want to hear what you have to say, because it's really important, because this is your college. This is our college. Okay, I've got 5 principles and 5 questions I'll go through quickly. Principle number one is safety. All right, the Long Beach earthquake happened in 1933, destroyed the campus. There's a quake here, I think, in '87. Trustee Mann and I are Northridge earthquake survivors. Okay, It's not a question of whether a quake will happen, it's a question of when. And one of our buildings is already shut because of earthquake, doesn't meet the earthquake code. So we must have a master plan of future in which all of our facilities are at the maximum of safety. 2, sustainability and our footprint. If you look back 88 years, we had a pretty small footprint, right? And also my personal, and I've said this and I won't take a long time with personal, and I bet you those windows opened, and my windows are sealed shut, okay? That was a Leeds Platinum building right there. But sustainability is obviously important because energy is going to be continued in some respects get scarcer and much more expensive. So how do we have a sustainable future and a small footprint? The third principle is what I call light equity. And by that I mean, if you look at our Center for the Arts, its design is that every moment that you're in it, you're aware of the light. In other words, there aren't a privileged few who have offices or facilities with light, and then the rest of us live in darkness, okay? Well, one of the principles we'd like to respect is light equity, where we're all, in the light, literally and figuratively. And the fourth, and these aren't necessarily in order of importance, and this may be the most important one next to safety, is active learning. Learning is changing. The way we're teaching is changing. The way students learn is changing. And so it's turning away from the old concept of lecture to an active, collaborative, constructivist kind of concept. And fifth is to create an conducive environment for community, okay, for social space, for people to come together and not just socialize, but that's how you create things, is you create things together, not individually. There are questions that we have, and you will, I'm sure, suggest many other questions. How do we do the following things? Number one, how do we preserve the past while we plan the future? Because we are going to preserve, I think there is common consensus among the trustees, among all of us, that we're going to preserve our past. But we also need to make it an organic part of a dynamic future. Number two, and this is a very broad question, and we've already been talking with our city partners, how are we going to redevelop the neighborhood? You see what the neighborhood looked like 88 years ago? Doesn't look like that anymore, okay? But we have an opportunity. Caltech, very nearby, we have an opportunity to redevelop the neighborhood if that's something we decide to do. How do we provide essential social services? Food, housing, retail and shopping, convenience, and health services for our very large city. We have almost 30,000 students and 2,000 employees. Fourth, how do we distribute our service to our wide service area? This Pasadena, these buildings are almost the epicenter of our district, but we have a very, very large geographic district. So one of the planning questions are we going to continue to encourage people to come to the central campus, or are we going to distribute our service out through the 7 trustee areas? And the other question, which is the question of questions for us, which is the fun part and which is the privilege that we have. And how do we honor our founders' vision? Because these guys, and I've taken upon myself the last few years, and it's just great fun, these guys were not building a high school and a junior college for the moment. Clearly what they were designing, they were building it for the next century. And they got it right. They got it right. It lasted all this time. So what's our version, right, of being handed this privilege and taking the founder's vision forward? So those are just kind of some warm-up questions and comments from me and so on. And I really thank you for your time today. And I hope that you'll be vigorous in giving us your input, which will be so valuable in creating what we want it to be, and that is America's top community college. So thank you very much, and on with Mindy Craig. Thanks, Mindy. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. Whoa. Hopefully, is that better? Okay. Good morning again. I want to just, we're such a smaller group, so maybe we just go quickly through the group and just introduce yourself and who you are. I know we obviously introduced some folks, but it'd just be nice to know who we're talking to because we have a little smaller group. So let's start right here.
My name is Louise Bell. I sit on the board with the USD Special
Excellent.
Education SELPA. I'm here as an independent individual, wondering how this master plan is going to incorporate the needs of students in the USD with an IEP, individual education plan, special education.
Great. Great. Good. Dr. Bell, do you want to introduce you?
Again, I'm Bob Bell. I'm the Assistant Superintendent, Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs here at Howard.
Good.
Susanna Shamim, I'm one of the members of the President's Advisory Committee on Asia Pacific, but I'm also a business owner in Pasadena and a resident, and want to get involved in the development of the future of the college.
Fabulous.
And again, Bob Miller, Assistant Superintendent of College Services.
And I'm Linda Brown, a board member. I represent the
Great. Sorry, we are actually, they're videotaping us today, so they do want us to do audio. So even though we're a small group and you can probably, I have a really loud voice, they would like us to use the microphone, so thanks for using that.
I'm Megan Bowen. I grew up in the Pasadena area, and I am a resident now with 2 children in high school. I am Associate Campaign Director for the Legacy Campaign at the Rose Bowl, and I have a son in college, and so higher education is becoming more a focal point. And I'm very interested in seeing Pasadena Community College being the community being more aware of what the college and what its vision and what it offers to the community.
Great.
So,
thanks.
as a bridge to a 4-year degree, I think that
Yeah.
in this day and age, a 4-year education is important, and I think for the community to understand the role that PCC plays in providing the cross section of our community that opportunity.
Great. Maybe go right, we'll finish this group here.
Ross Selvage, Board of Trustees. I represent Seat 1, which includes La Cañada, Flint Ridge, Southwest Pasadena, and West Altadena, and I'm a PCC alumnus.
Okay.
John Martin, PCC alum and member of the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
I'm Susan Painter. I'm with AC Martin. We are one of the planners.
And I'm Chuck Seeger, also with AC Martin, one of the 3 planning firms here.
My name is John Grady, and I'm representing the flea market today on their behalf. And you need to come out to the first Sunday of every month to buy what you need and maybe what you don't need. And no, but it's there, and I mean it's been there a long time, and it's free. Everybody here, thank you.
Celine Larkin, Master Planner with Gensler.
Midori Mizuhara, Architect and Master Planner with Gensler.
And Claudia Carroll, also with Gensler, and we've learned a lot yesterday and look forward to hearing from everybody today.
Great. Chris, right here, we get these guys.
Hi, Jimmy, Pasadena City College student currently.
Great, glad to have you.
Mimi Lee, we're part of the lobby committee here.
Great, thank you.
I'm Dolores Higginbottom, member of the President's African American Advisory Committee, the graduate of PCC, community activist, and community volunteer. Thank you.
Jeanette Mann, trustee. I represent East Pasadena, East Altadena, and Sierra Madre. Linda Waugh, Board of Trustees for Area 5, representing South Pasadena, San Marino, and Temple City.
Good morning. Guadalupe Flores, Pasadena resident and private practice architect.
Great, thanks.
Mary Jarrett, second generation Pasadena. My mom was an alum from here. I am an alum from here, and member of the community.
Great.
I'm Greg Sun. I'm on the PCC Foundation board.
I'm Nora Sun. I've lived here for about 9 years. I took my first course in how to use my computer in the 1990s, and I'm on the AAPI Advisory Committee. I'd like to find out more about the future vision and
Great.
plans.
Good.
Bob Herman with Jacobs Engineering, a firm that's been headquartered here in Pasadena for almost 60 years, and excited and privileged to be here.
Fadi Rassam. I'm a product of one of the community colleges in California, Chabot College. Started there when I landed in the U.S. 33 years ago, and I'm a 27-year resident of Pasadena, many years with Parsons, and I currently own a small business in Pasadena, 20 people. We do construction management.
Fantastic.
I'm Mabel Duncan. I'm a retired professor from Pasadena City College. And there are 3 generations of us who have attended Pasadena City College, and so I continue to be interested in all things Pasadena City College.
Great.
I'm Jennifer Choi, project coordinator and designer with HGA.
I'm Satoshi. I'm with the HGA planning team.
Stan Chu with the HGA planning team. And James Matson, HGA architects and engineers.
Ina Murphy on the HGA team with facility programming and consulting.
I'm Doug Lowe on the HGA team, also with facility programming.
And last but not least.
Greg Fuentes, alumni. I'm also a parent of a student here.
I'm Catherine Fuentes. I'm also an alumni PCC graduate, both of us are. And we currently have one student that just moved on after being 4 years here, and one that's currently in his second year. So I'm just, my kids have received an outstanding education here, but I'd like to see where the future's going and remind what hasn't worked and improve on what has worked for the future.
Great. Well, I think this is a really great, diverse group of voices here. So as Dr. Rocha mentioned, I think we'll have a very nice conversation. But before we get to hear more about you, I just wanted to give an overview of what this process is and what we're thinking this facilities master plan will actually create for us. As we now know, we have our 3 planning firms here with us, and we have an opportunity after this sort of formal planning element we're going to talk 30 minutes with each one of them, and they have exercises to engage you and to talk, and we saw them yesterday, and so they're very different. So each one has great value, and highly encourage you to make sure to stay to the very end for that. Just briefly, what is our process? Well, we started this actually in October when we the board approved this process. We went and sent RFQs out to about 50 different firms. We had 11 submittals. And we whittled that down to 4 firms to interview. Of those 4, we then selected the 3 who are here today. They are charged with creating a conceptual facilities master plan by April. And what that means, it's a high level, taking our vision and our values and what we believe is the character and the sense of what we want for PCC and representing that in a physical form. They'll be presenting that, and then we'll choose which architect firm we think will be the best to create the full master plan, and they will be selected to continue that process for the rest of the year. We'll have additional different outreach opportunities with those planning firms, but this is definitely the kickoff for us. So as Bob Miller mentioned, I started at PCC working on the educational master plan several years ago. And the reason that I'm back is that that really is the foundation for the facilities master plan. It is not developed in a vacuum. Out of that process, we developed with the faculty, the staff, and the community mission-critical priorities. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are the foundation of why we need a facilities master plan and how our facilities master plan will be developed. Things like student success, equity, and access. How do we make sure that people are able to come to PCC and get the success and the goals they want? Technology, how do we make sure that we are a vibrant, cutting-edge community college? Lifelong learning, revenue enhancement, sustainability, key elements of our educational master plan are directly informing our facilities now. And that educational master plan also provided a guiding direction about how do we transform from a college that's worried about access and getting kids to us to one that is about completion of goals. And that's really where the college has focused, is making sure that a student who comes to PCC will actually achieve what they want. The other thing that's very critical for us is closing the achievement gap. How do we create the programs, the services, and the facilities that help us to allow the access to education at all levels? And we've had a lot of really great success. One of the things that is a particular success is the Pathways program. And the first year experience where a student, it used to be they would come in and they would get a course, say, in a math, and they needed the next one, but they weren't available. And so now the Pathways program allows a set of courses in a line for them to achieve their first year without interruption. And that has now become a model for the state. The state's saying, wow, you guys have done a great job here. We're going to do this in other community colleges because this is such a great way of starting success. And we're measuring our progress and each step and each metric, how we are achieving our basic skills, making sure that we're looking at our progression every year, how we do with English as a second language, our basic skills in math and English. We're also looking at how we target our four-year transfer students, AA degrees, our STEM degrees. We're really trying to be methodical about what we are doing and making sure that we're measuring our success. So let us talk a little bit about who PCC is and what our demographics are. This chart shows that almost 50% of our students are over 22. So what does that mean for us? That means that we have an older population, a lot of second careers. That lifelong learning becomes a lot more important to us as we think about that 50%. How do we create the facilities and the services that serve that? At the same time, serving the kids who are coming out of high school and into college. So we have two big populations that we are managing here, and we have to look at the different demographics as they change over time. And diversity, this is just an overlay. In the red is the PCC, and then the yellow-orange is LA County. And so we're fairly representative of our community at large. We have some differences, but we have a really strong diversity here at PCC. And where are our students from? So this is something that always surprises people, where we have almost 65% out of district and 29% within the district. There is now a guaranteed enrollment for in-district students, high school students, and that's a really big thing. We really want to reach out to PUSD and try and increase that number by recognizing we are still a draw from people in the wider region. And so how do we think about that in terms of transportation, distance learning? There's a whole bunch of implications on where our students are coming from. And educational goals. What do our students want to do when they come here? And this changes over time. We know that. Someone comes in and they have one idea and they change mid-course and they do something else. But most of our students are coming here as a transfer student. That's what their stated goal is. There's also people who want job skills and qualifications, and they just want to get their two-year degree. But transfer is the number one. This is also very important for us. How well is a student being retained here at the PCC? Are they getting all the things they need to continue class after class, semester after semester to get to their success? So these are tied together. How are they retained, and then how is their success? And we are seeing an increase over time, and that's the way we want to see it. One of the big things, as has been mentioned, is how do we reach down to K-12? We're actually thinking about doing a pathway from 9th grade all the way to 4-year. This is really exciting because we're trying to capture the youth and say, what do you want to do and what is your path? And we're here to help you do that. So reaching out into our community at the younger is very critical, as is going forward. How do we connect to the different the different universities, making sure our students know what all the opportunities are? We have Caltech next door. So how do we create that connection even greater and fuller, as well as all the other opportunities in the area? Another big question of this, and something that is really important to PCC and any community college, is what does the market want? They want skilled workers, of course, but what kind of skills? Well, they want ones with soft skills. And what are soft skills? How do you communicate? Are you strategic? Can you be a critical thinker? Those are things that are very hard sometimes to teach in a straight up class, but they also need technical skills. So we need to meld both those soft skills and our technical skills to create the kind of people that the workforce wants. I'm going to just read this top quote here. I think it's very interesting. Today, nearly 11 million Americans are unemployed, yet at the same time, 4 million jobs are unfilled. This is the skills gap, the gulf between the skills job seekers currently have and the skills employers need to fill their open positions. This is our challenge and an opportunity for PCC to see how can we help in this community to close that skills gap. And where are people looking for jobs? Technicians, sales reps, engineers, skilled trade workers. These are areas that PCC is already touching, that we're already doing programs. So how can we enhance this and make that even better for our students? And this is also very interesting. Where are those employers looking for to get the skilled? Well, almost 7%, this is one of the bigger areas, is working and partnering with educational institutions to get the talents that they need to do their job. Unfortunately, a lot of the jobs right now, there's a lot of them that don't pay a lot, but they are under high school. You can get a high school diploma and you can get a job. But what you see is that if you get an associate degree here at $57,000 and change and up, you have a much better living wage here. If you don't have at least an associate's degree, it's very hard to make a living. And we also see that it's the fastest growing area. Here's this top number here. 23.7% of all the new jobs are around for associate degrees. And they, again, have a very decent wage. So how does the Education Master Plan influence the Facilities Plan? Sometimes people feel like they're kind of separate, but they're not. They're critical to one another. They create the spaces and the places to support that learning. And that's what we're here today about, is to figure out what is it that we need to support really strong, active learning. And just to kind of give you the full context, we have our mission of PCC is the central of what we do. The Educational Master Plan is also a guiding force, connecting to all our planning efforts, strategic planning, program review, institutional effectiveness, and the resource allocation is where facilities really comes into play. In our EMP, we had 6 key signature goals. And I'm going to go over them relatively quickly just to indicate how those connect to the facilities. So one of them is guaranteed enrollment for in-district high school students. That could mean we need more capacity and more flexibility for our students and for our facilities, excuse me. We want to be the premier transfer California community college. So that means we have really technical, high-end learning labs. We need to be connected to four-year college, STEM space, international student space, and much more. We need degree and certificate programs that address marketplace needs. So we need specialized space for our career tech programs and corporate training efforts. Cutting-edge learning environments is our 4th one. And that means we have the provision of high-quality facilities and technology that support our learning. Dedication to lifelong learning, that is the environment for adults pursuing second careers, potentially revenue-generating facilities, and a sustainable college community. These are environmental sustainability for our buildings and landscapes, as well as educational, economic, and equity. If you think of sustainability in the full realm of that, it can have all those impacts. So one of the big questions is, what is a 21st century global student? I had the opportunity to speak to lots of deans and faculty and board members and community members before this, and this is from one of the deans here. He said, I'm going to quote, this is a general quote, not exactly, a 21st century global student is someone who is collaborative, can lead through example, be flexible and adaptable to any environment, have the right communication strategy for every audience, think like an entrepreneur, be a critical thinker, and take calculated risks to achieve more. It's a pretty big bar to achieve that. There's a lot in that, but I think that really captures what we are looking for in terms of the 21st century global student. So this is the 20th century, a very nice thing, but everyone's in straight little rows paying rapt attention to their professor. This is not how we're thinking about learning now today. It's about flexibility, about collaboration and interaction. People are getting up, they're doing things. It's not the sitting in your seat anymore. And what does that classroom look like? It could be the super duper high-tech, everything bells and whistles. It could be mobile. You don't have to have it in a building. It can be out on the streets. It's light and open. It feels good to be there, it could be anywhere. It could be outside. It could be in a backyard. It could be under a tree. But we do know it's highly social. That's something that's very different, and we have to think about how that space is created. This is much more of the future of learning than what we saw before. And we also know that we're trying to integrate multiple different things in one space. This is sort of based on the D School at Stanford, where they're changing how you are creating products and programs by integrating multiple disciplines in one space, where you might have an artist, an architect, an engineer, and a liberal arts students in one place, creating in very dynamic areas. And the space reflects that. But we also have, remember those 63% of our students who are out of district? How do we also engage them more effectively? Online and distant learning hybrids, where we might have lectures online, but the students come here for their social interaction, their community engagement comes to the campus, but we could also capture them and reduce their vehicle trips and their time on the roads by having a better distance learning. And 7 days a week, we're just starting the weekend college, looking at how that might affect and impact other adult learners as well as students who are working during the week. And finally, thinking about technology. We don't even know what's going to be out there. The Trekkies out there might know about the holodeck. Well, they're actually now creating holodecks right now that you can actually have virtual learning. Is that our future? The Google Glass, they're now about to send those out so you can buy it and do all sorts of things. Virtual learning, and artificial intelligence, these are the things we have to start thinking about as we maintain our past and integrate what the future is. And how do we balance that? How do we make them come together in a way that is harmonious? Another big thing is, how do we have access, the counseling and outreach? Well, this is our learning center, and we're creating better spaces, more spaces here on the college, but going out into the community. This is San Antonio's Cafe College. Places that are actually located in the community. They don't have to be a big center, but it's a place where someone can get applications, they can get counseling, they can figure out how to get through to college, and it's in the community. They don't have to come to us, we're going to them. Here, we need to build that college experience, and actually PCC is unlike a lot of community colleges where we have that. We really already have a lot of the college experience, but we can do even more. Creating places where people can study and gather and belong. Sense of community is important. The student services and amenities that we have the nice piazza downstairs and one other food space. But we know food is really important to students. More of it, more environments maybe like this, the outdoor cafes and small gathering places where people can sit, lots of shade, those things are important. Engaging our international students and growing that population. What about housing? Can we create housing so they have a place of belonging and a place of community here? And sustainability. We've talked a lot about sustainability, but that's a very critical piece of what we look for in our future facilities. Energy, water, how we manage our waste stream, the buildings and landscapes with operations and behavior. It's a huge piece of what we have to think about. And I just wanted to share this example. This is West Davis Village at UC Davis. It's the first net zero community in the country, and it's very intentional. Everything from how you get from campus to these housing, this is a vertical solar panels that then power EV stations, electrical vehicles in the background. All of these are solar. All the different awnings are allowed for passive light to come in. It's a fantastic place, and it is an example of what we can do as we start thinking about our future campus. So let me kind of go forward to the context of a plan. Here is our district. We right now have a couple of satellite centers. One is the CEC, which is right here, and Rosemead, which has been built out here. But there's a lot of other community that isn't engaged. So what do we do about that? How do we reach out to that larger district? This is the idea, again, of the Cafe College. Is that where we go? Is that a way of engaging people more effectively? Again, we have this huge reach, the huge area of people from LA County who come here to Pasadena. How do we engage all of those people who want to be here? And again, is that distance learning? There may be some other options out there too. And then also we have our space right here in Pasadena, an opportunity to build the city. And with Caltech, again, our neighbors here, our areas, we own some land and possibilities to the west, or excuse me, to the east. and then the north. And then there's also, as was very clearly pointed out, even some opportunities here on the other side across Bonnie that we might be able to look at. But connecting and building with our city is really important in that integration. But I want to now have Ruben Smith come up and talk about what are the opportunities and the needs, and kind of do a virtual tour of the facilities for you.
Thank you, Mindy. Needs and opportunities. Let me first start by saying with our 53 acres, we have 1.9 million square feet of space here. And though we are landlocked, we also have the CEC that's not shown here. We do have some challenges. The challenges are to facilitate the best teaching and learning environment as we go through this process, and we have an abundance of deferred maintenance. With this being a 90-year-old campus, it is a challenge to maintain the campus as it is, and then to take us to that next level of creating the right learning and teaching environments for the future. It looks like we're going to have to consider where those spaces are going to be, because that teaching is going to require some professional development as well. So we're going to talk about possibly reusing, adaptive reuse. We want to preserve the past, and doing that is basically with the C, D, and the E building and our mirror pools. We want to preserve our past. What do we do with those buildings? Well, we also have opportunity areas as well. These are parking structures. To the west of us, we have parking lot 1, which is just right behind me. And then we have parking lot 3, 6, and 7, and then the U building. Serafian Hall is actually been vacated because of the seismic challenges that we have here, and it's unsafe to occupy that building. So right now, what we're doing is we have several functions spread across campus, but most of our sciences are right here in the Science Village. So we have 44 modular units, basically science laboratories in this space. For about 40,000 square feet. And then we have some other space across the campus in various locations. The art building, the 5th floor, has our dental lab, and then the CEC has our nursing program. But these are opportunity areas. What do we do with those areas? There are opportunities for us, but we talked about public housing, we talked about new spaces. Well, with so much parking, surface parking that we have shown here, is it possible that we go with subterranean parking? Do we build on top of those structures? Do we leave them as they are? Are there challenges, other challenges that we haven't even thought about yet with these opportunity spaces? That is a picture of the U building. And these are other opportunities for us. Moving forward in the future, if we're talking about building out the campus for the next 50 years, is it really wise to have modular units that are probably going to last 20 years? We're going to start having challenges here. If we want to consider being a sustainable campus, these are energy hogs for us. It's really tough to maintain these buildings that we see that don't have any light equity. The V building is one. The R building is just behind you as another building, 5-story with no light equity, as well as the W building. That impacts the comfort. If we're talking about, we're talking about the best teaching and possible learning space, that is influenced by the heating and the cooling, and as well as light equity, the comfort you have in those buildings. That is the R building. And these are the other areas that we see opportunities with: internal updates and reconfiguration. By preserving our past, we're talking about our exterior structures and the mirror pools in this area. What do we do with the interiors of those buildings? They are dilapidated. They've exhausted their life. Many of our systems need rebuilding, revamping. We're having challenges with our air handler units. We're having challenges with our boiler units, which is a real difficult to ensure that each classroom is comfortable for the students and the faculty. What are the challenges that we have with the GM building and Robinson Stadium? Right now, we have Robinson Stadium, and we do not have a soccer field that is actually regulation. So what happens is our soccer team goes to the playoffs, they have to play away from their home campus. The Shatford Library, the LL building. That's a 22-year-old building as well, exhausting its life on many of the systems. We had a major repair, 2 failures in the last 6 months, where we had over 600 books were destroyed in one issue with a broken show water line, and then we had another 1,200 books that caused us that we lost in December because of we have an aging and exhausting system. What we've done is we've prevented that from ever happening again by instituting new roller grip clamps and sheet pans and to divert all the water away from any potential hazard to preserve our books. But we do have challenges here with the systems in that building. Right now, we are considering what we can do with Prop 39 funds. We're looking to see what we can do with partnering with the city on what incentives that we have. And it looks like we're going to receive about $90,000 worth of incentives to help with some of the problems that we have to maintain the campus, as well as support from the chancellor's office. But we can't do it piece by piece, a little bit at a time. With 1.9 million square feet, we're actually addressing small portions at a time, a couple of 100,000 square feet here and there. Gathering spaces. It's really important to preserve as much green space as we can. When we talk about sustainability, we talk about gathering spaces. When we look at what's going on here in our Galloway Plaza, students are gathering and they enjoy being in these areas. But what do we do with them? How can we create more areas for them to gather outside when it's hot or when it has inclement weather? Do we have places for them to go? Right now, we can't house all the students when it's raining or when it's 100 degrees outside. We do have challenges for those students. Where do they go? A lot of times they're being disruptive in buildings, and we tend to get some complaints for that. But number one is we need to focus on the fact that the student is here. So we want to keep the student here. So what do we need to do? Do we need to provide seating? Do we need to provide shade structures? Is it possible that we have solar charging stations for these students? We want to give them an opportunity to be successful, and that student success is important, not only in the classroom, but outside. We talked about our mirror pools and our gathering spaces and what's going on outside of our campus. A lot of students like to gather right here. Sometimes you'll see students out there kicking a ball around, throwing the football, anytime they can have some downtime just to meet and to discuss things and just to take their mind off of school for a moment, or even to just talk about some of the topics that they just left a lecture from. We get a lot of students that tend to gather out here, but we have not enough places for them to sit and to be comfortable. But that is a very good place for them to gather, as well as in the quad, and as I discussed before, in the Galloway Plaza around the water feature. But what do we do outside of our landlocked campus? The opportunities across Colorado Boulevard we would like to consider. Now, we don't want to be too prescriptive in what we're considering and what we can do with the public and private partnerships if it's a mixed-use opportunity. But what we'd like to do is, what are the needs? Because we have three really wonderful planning firms here today, and I don't want to stifle their creativity or their innovation. So what we'd like to do is identify those needs, pick out those locations where we think we have opportunities, and we'd like to share them. Mindy is going to go through that exercise after this to really pull some of those ideas from you. But as Mindy discussed, we also have opportunities to the west of us on Colorado. What do we do with this land? Do we partner with any of our neighbors? We talked about preserving our past, and what do we do, like Dr. Rocha said, to build on our founder's vision. The Center for the Arts is our new building, and it's a wonderful space. It has natural light. It's a welcoming environment. It has two entrances that give you a very totally different feel when you walk into the building. How do we create that for the rest of the campus? How do we bring light to every office, to every classroom? What is the inspiration? What is going to be important for us? What are we going to look to for our future over the next 50 years? And what does it mean to the city and the region? PCC has a brand equity that no other community college has, with our association with the Tournament of Roses, with our association with the parade, and what happens here every year. What does that mean for our campus? How do we plan for our campus not to only provide the teaching and learning environment, but we also have Band Fest, we have the Rose Parade, we park a lot of buses here, we have a lot of students from around the world who come here and represent their countries, represent their communities. We still have to be concerned for what does that mean for the community, and how does PCC play a role in that? Student success, targeted access, growth, and completion. As Mindy talked about, we want to close the achievement gap, and we want to provide the best teaching and learning environment to do that, not just today, but for the next 50 to 100 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruben. So now I think you may have a pretty good background of what we've been thinking here, all the questions from Dr. Rocha, Ruben, myself. It's a big, big question about what we want to do. So I wanted to start engaging you folks and get some sense of what you think some of the opportunities and challenges might be as we're thinking about this. And we also want to talk about a vision and how do we create that vision, and what are some of the values and the character that PCC wants to maintain and to enhance when we talk about new facilities. So does anyone want to start with some thoughts about what some of the opportunities? Right back here.
Again, I have a student here who's currently in his second year. I have one that just transferred. And I will compliment PCC as an alumni. The education the kids receive here is unsurmountable. It's outstanding. Because outside of the public visiting the colleges, I do work with a high school. The reputation for PCC is strong, well-educated, and more prepared than the private students like USC, UCLA. I'm a little nervous. But I have to say, I think 2013 would recognize a little bit of a debacle for PCC as far as the extended spring registration and how that whole thing played out. As far as kids registering, the end results, their spring extended grades were supposed to be reported as spring and then were reported as summer. I'd like to see the reputation of PCC continue to be strong and the kids can proudly say, I'm a graduate or a student from PCC. Some kids I have found, I have a student at Fullerton, the kids are embarrassed to say they're from a community college. My kids are proud to say that's where they wanted to go. They wanted to get the foundation, figure out where they wanted to go, and get the education that they need. And the professors here, the educators, have been more than supportive. Once a student, always a student. But I would like to see, sorry, I'm really nervous, that building this future for our kids, obviously we need to build the buildings. We need to get the teachers here. We need to be able to service the students that we have now, physically here, with the advertising through the community, on the radio, come register with PCC, come take classes. The kids can't get their classes. Mm-hmm. And it's discouraging because they need the education to move forward. Because you can't get a job unless you have what used to be a high school degree long, long ago is now you need a minimum an AA degree. Now the kids need a bachelor's. And we drive this into our kids' heads 24/7. And then when they finally do what their parents do them do, they're stonewalled. And they're frustrated. And I just want to see kids be successful, be encouraged. My kids are part of the music program here. And I am an absolute valiant cheerleader for that group, for Mr. Lack, Mr. Carpenter, Dr. Arnwine, and the community service that our kids provide as part of band members here for PCC. But it doesn't seem to be quietly recognized, even though they are T of our kids, or they are Lancer band members outside of our community, and what they serve back and bring back to the communities outlining these schools. Mm-hmm. So, and then my question too was regarding the buildings. For our older buildings, like the R building, the U building, they were old when I was a student here. Are we gonna tear those down, or are we gonna rehab them? What's the plan for that?
I think that's what we're here to help identify, that we make sure our three planning firms here are here to hear all this. They're also going to assess the buildings themselves to evaluate, can it be capped? We know that the U building cannot, but it's going to be an evaluation of each one. What is the use? What is our vision for going forward? And so it's a balancing, and that's actually their job.
I was going to say also the customer service. I think the customer service for the students as well as parents has kind of gone a little bit on the wayside. I know technology has become very much an easy, quick thing, and we're all into the instant gratification. But when the students show up on the administrators or the administration's office to get help with maybe the registration process or about their transcripts, they're literally told you have to do that online. And then when they're asked, well, how do I do that? Because before the process was you filled out a piece of paper and you blah, blah, blah. No, you have to do it online. I think it's gotten to the point where technology has become so non-face-to-face with the student as their customer that they have forgotten who they're working for. And it's really to work for the student in the sense of when they call. I've done this. I've made plenty of phone calls regarding questions, and I can't get a call back.
great.
The message is like, it's a voicemail 24/7. It's ridiculous.
So I
It's
think
frustrating.
let me just put you on pause. Let me have a couple other people talk, and we'll come back to you on
Okay.
some other points. But
That's
I think that's a good element, this idea of how do we actually have a balance of the online with the personal touch, and that customer service kind of top to bottom is a combination of that. Did you have a comment too?
Yes. Again, my name is Louise Bell, and I am, I'll make a comment about my adult child who did attend PCC. She didn't graduate from PCC, but she transferred from PCC and went to Spelman. And after graduating from Spelman, she got a fellowship. She was one of 10 out of 100 who were applied for a fellowship with USC's Annenberg School of Broadcast Journalism, and she was selected. And also PCC's, one of her counselors played a major role in getting her an internship with Tavis Smiley, which she did for 3 years. So those are great things I'm going to point out about PCC. 17 years ago, I found out about a kid who had been set in a tub of scalding hot water, and she went into the foster care system, and I got involved. I became her foster parent. I adopted her, and I found out in that process when she was 2, and in a world-class child care center, the Child Educational Center in La Cañada, she wasn't hitting those progress milestones that typically learning students would hit. But I eventually adopted her, and I became very involved in the special education department of the Pasadena Unified School District when she started there in kinder. And I've been on the special education local plan area, which is mandated by the state. I'm the board secretary now. I've been the board secretary before. And I want to reference a meeting that was held in November 2013 by the CAC, the Special Education SELPA. We were discussing the transition from high school in the PUSD to college. And there were 3 speakers. One was Bianca Richards from PCC's Disabled Students Counseling. I was very dismayed. Well, first I want to say the chair of the CAC is Ms. Joy Costello, and she came on campus prior to our November meeting. She came on campus at PCC, and she looked at the disabled students' facilities. She also talked to Bianca about the registration process, which taps into what the prior speaker was saying. All community colleges in California, I learned from that meeting, require students to apply online, which requires a certain level of cognitive and technology skill sets. Ms. Richards, Bianca, basically explained to the parents at this November 2013 CAC meeting that the disabilities that are accommodated on campus at PCC have nothing to do with intellectual delays. They have to do with mobility, visual, maybe auditory, and in a nice way, the attendees, which were, it's a parent advocacy group. It teaches parents how to advocate for their students with intellectual and other delays who have IEPs in the PUSD. But basically what we were told is there is no place, and all of our meetings are recorded, there is no place on campus at PCC for students who have cognitive and intellectual delays. I went back to school with my youngest, with all 3 of my kids, but I gave her the same help academic help, and I am a college graduate. I gave her the same help that I gave my other two children who didn't attend school at PCC, in the PUSD. So my daughter is high functioning, but not. Her diagnosis is mild mental retardation. I just want to say this. I listened to everything that was said about this master plan, and it seems to be talking about buildings, but there was no discussion, and you're outreaching to the international world, and you talked a lot about STEM, but there was no discussion at all in all that's been presented so far about how you are going to provide a learning environment for students who, and a learning opportunity for students who are transitioning from a major part of this community, the Pasadena Unified School District, safely onto the campuses of PCC. This seems discriminatory, and I hope that while you continue to plan, that you will incorporate, that you'll reach out to the executive director of the PUSD Special Education Program and the board and make some major tweaks to all of this elaborate planning and immediately plan to incorporate students who have intellectual challenges in the PUSD, which makes them community members.
So let me just ask, kind of hear your point, and I think I appreciate the thing. I think we want to try and be a little bit cognizant that there's a lot of folks here to have a little bit shorter comments if we could, because I think we do want to hear it and it's critical. And I think what we heard yesterday, and we talked a lot about this actually, was how do we integrate student services and success and counseling and tutoring for all our students in every single place, so that there wasn't a place. It was actually integrated in every single building that we went to, that we talked about it's not just a counselor and having a resource of a counselor and a space with one place, that it had to actually become a culture of what PCC does, is providing those facilities and those people. So it's actually very much on top of our mind, and it may not come through on this, but I think that's part of our student success. That student success isn't for a particular person. It's not for a transfer person.
Yeah, and I'll add, just for the purposes of this woman's comments, because they're very important. Yesterday, Bianca Richards was here. Cynthia Lebo, our Associate Vice President responsible for that area, was here. So there's a lot of awareness of the need that you are speaking to. And although in this presentation, because of it's a different group today, I can tell you that we had walls full of writings and flip charts, and much of what you're talking about was front and center in people's minds. So we do understand that.
And so I think this is what you're offering is a clear challenge, though. I mean, I think what you're saying is not to be missed. That how we, and it's not just for special needs. I think it's for everybody who has, be it an English second language learner, be it somebody who has a different culture, has a different background. We have to think about all those students and all those community members in a multitude of ways, and I think that's really critical.
And as an individual, I too graduated from PCC back in the early 70s, and this is my second tour of duty here at the college, and I understand the importance of what you're talking about to this community in general, and this college has always prided itself in doing its best to serve that community. And we have enormously dedicated people here who stop Dr. Bell and I every day and remind us of the needs that you're talking about. So this is very high in our minds. So I think we need to move on. I think this woman wants to.
I'm going to kind of switch gears and go to square footage. And one of the things I would suggest is I'm actually here because of the PR and media in the paper, but nowhere did you really give instructions. I had no idea where this was, where I was going. And I think one of the things, having grown up with PCC, and you mentioned Caltech, if you look at PCC on a map, it really is bordered and sort of barriered by its parking spaces. It's very, I've never been on the campus. It's very, the community, it's very insular. And I think one of, if I look at, and I just looked at it for the first time this morning, in terms of overall, and it would be interesting to have a stat on what the square footage of the campus is total, and I know you mentioned it, but when I look at the map and I see how much parking, how much real estate is taken up in parking and how expensive parking is. And you talk about remote but really, and light, but really going down, seeing how the square footage could be increased going down. We have the spatial surface space, but really how going up or down would increase the functional space, and really what the mission of the school is, which is education, and to have as much square footage in the educational buildings and using more of the real estate effectively, and maybe it's remote parking, or maybe it's co-oping with like Art Center does and has its own bus system. And I am very uneducated on PCC. That's why I'm here today. But just looking at what the primary purpose is, what I got from it was buildings and then taking what the future educational, what that was going to look educationally, but what the physical space was going to provide, not only for what we think today's needs are, but what they are 10 years from now and 90 years from now. And I think parking is a critical part of that.
It's a huge asset. Ruben, do you want to?
Well, thank you for your comments. It's 1.9 million square feet. That's including our new building. And I agree with you that we are bordered with parking. That is a challenge. A part of being a sustainable campus and approaching that net zero is we have to consider what our transportation needs are going to be. Do we use local transportation? Is that another partnership with the Department of Transportation? Do we, how do we get students here? Yesterday we talked about a bike share program. We talked about call crew programs. But the goal is to reduce the need for parking. So number one, we need to figure out how to do that, reducing the need for parking. And number two is subterranean parking is another option because it gives us an opportunity to expand in those parking areas where we have so much asphalt now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll add very quickly, yesterday we had Councilman Terry Tornick here, we had senior members of the city manager's office here, development office, what have you, and there's been a lot of conversation about how we can work with the city to set up these transit hubs that you're talking about, reduce the number of times that people have to come on campus, park, to improve our gateways into the campus and to basically use our space much more efficiently because we've got 53 or 54 acres right now and that's it. So thank you for these comments. They're near and dear.
Accessibility. When you drive around Caltech, you don't see parking, you see the places of learning. That's right. And the visual accessibility of the campus, I think is a part of what that vision was. You look at the picture from the early 1900s, that was the accessibility. I think that's important.
Yeah. That's great. Let's see, I have right here, and then I have two people over this side, and we'll go back to there.
Hi. Yeah, I'm speaking more as a parent now since I have two students, two PCC alum students in my family. But I want to thank Director Smith and Assistant Superintendent Miller for their comments on the public transportation. That has also been one of my concerns. I would really like to see an investment in our brick and mortar and our facilities in places of learning as opposed to how we drive our cars. So I like the idea of the bike share, zip cars. And actually I went to school in I had an international school experience in the Caribbean. And we use jitney services all over for the students, and that could be something that we look at. But also being someone who is in technology, I know that there are several thoughts about whether or not technology can be utilized to help provide better access. And I do think that we have a generation that is adaptable to technology and to learning. And I myself, would love to take classes here at PCC, but I don't want to take up a seat that a student could take. And so, but classes I want to take are also full. They fill up pretty quickly. So I ended up having to go to a private tutoring service, and I take a language class online through FaceTime, which turns out to be great. So I hope that we can utilize some of those types of mobile, when we talk about mobility and mobile access, I think that those are things that we should look at, and we should look at students who have, and classes that have adaptability to that. And I also think that I know that there are, that Director Smith, you're doing a lot of space assessment, and not all of our buildings are completely full. So I think that, now speaking as a board member, I think that for me, it would be helpful to know, where that space is that could be best utilized so that we can make that connection. It kind of draws a better picture. I'm not sure I have that picture completely.
Right. That's definitely the activity we're going to be doing here. Let's see, go over here. Yes.
Thank you. I want to echo some of the comments that Trustee Wah is making. We really need to think more long-term and future-oriented. And the college of the future I see is one without walls, and using more of the technology component to give more people access, not only your traditional college students, but your lifelong learners, people who are transitioning from different careers, changing careers, how they can access education. And technology is very important. You may even think about co-locating classroom space at transportation hubs into the stations, the bus stations, the rail stations, having maybe kiosks type student services for them, and then having classroom space at those locations. So as people are coming back from work, they could go straight into a class and then from there go home. So we've got to think more innovatively. Innovation is part of your theme, so think about that. And since we are landlocked, we have only so much space, we've got to think how we can spread our wings outside into the community.
Cool. There's someone else on this side. Oh, there we go. And then we'll come back onto here. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Alan Hubge, and I am a neighbor. I live on Roosevelt Street, which is 1 block south of Del Mar. A PCC is, I think, a fantastic resource for the community. I live right, 100 feet from PCC and 100 feet from Caltech. The difference with PCC is that it really is a community resource. We come over here for events, and I've worked with the Office of Campus Use and actually sponsored events here on the campus. So it's fantastic to have as a resource for the community. There's one way in which it is not really a good neighbor that stands out to me, and that is its facade, and especially its facade facing south. Its facade facing north on to Colorado is beautiful. But on the back end, it's a blight, and you can see it in the residences that are on the south side of Del Mar, where it looks the worst. The houses opposite are the worst. Nobody wants to live across from a 20-foot concrete wall. That is the back end of the football stadium. Now, I realize the football stadium's probably not going anywhere anytime soon, and the parking garages aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But the most recent thing is that the portables were installed in that parking lot back there, and that, that's not a good neighbor. But they're hopefully temporary. What I suggest in terms of buildings is that some thought be given to the facade, particularly when those portables are removed and something else is placed there, that it be designed in mass and scale and architecture and landscaping to be a transition to a residential neighborhood, and maybe the rest of the facade retrofitted in some way so that, again, it is a better neighbor, better facade for the school itself, so that it presents itself as a better appearance, not just to the neighbors, but to the world.
Yeah, it's a big wall back there.
Yeah.
And
so it really does make a difference to that neighborhood, and particularly to those homes back there. And
I think that what I hear at the end of the day is how do we better integrate and engage those neighborhoods, because it's like a street. If you walk down a street and it's a giant strip art mall, it has no doors, no windows, it feels not safe, it doesn't feel comfortable, it's not nice. And if we can create a better engaging space back there It's not
Yeah,
necessarily
there-
noisy or loud, but it actually just feels nicer, might be a.
I'm confident that there are things that can be done. There's a new
absolutely.
parking garage that's been built in Century City that is gorgeous.
Right.
Strange, but it's gorgeous. And so things can be done, and,
Yeah.
and really they should be done to present a better facade to the world and to that neighborhood
Yeah.
and be a better neighbor back there.
That's great.
Thank you.
All the way over here, and then we'll come back to this side. Did you still have a question? Hold on, just let me get the.
I mean, parking's always been an issue here, even as a student when I was here. And I just find that it's irritating for my student when they have to get here an hour earlier than their class, or sometimes an hour and a half, just to fight for parking. So I think parking is another huge priority that has to be in the consideration as the buildings go up. The parking has to be able to accommodate. Most of our kids are either driving, do walk. My son does ride his bike when he can. When he did ride his bike, he locked it somewhere, had a nasty note from security on it. Go figure, right? So I just feel that the parking is not something that needs to be minimized. It's something that's just as important as where our kids are sitting in their classrooms.
So I hear on that also, and is this desire for alternative transportation, but it's also accommodating other forms. So if someone's taking their bike, we talked about this yesterday, where can people park, where can they move, how do they get around here? So we have to have a full transportation consideration for all those modes.
John Martin, former student. My son attended here and transferred. My vision of the future, embodying some of the comments and echoing some of the comments that were just made, is if I could sum it up in a word, it would be flexibility. We're dealing with students who are used to getting their same music that they set up on playlists on their phone, on their laptop, or wherever they go. So I vision flexibility in the future where my class is not a function of a location. I think there's a role for our cafe colleges and community locations in the community where there may be a class that isn't located in the C building or in Rosemead or at the Skills Center, but there is an importance to that physical interaction, but maybe those could be in local centers where there's a class of 30 in 4 different locations of 8 interacting. Or part of the class I'm doing online at home, and more of the class, and we offer some of those now, hybrid classes, are in local regions where we do interact or there is a community. But think of classes not in terms of walls or space as was expressed, or when we look at what employers want today, and you expressed it in your slides, they're looking for employees or workers who are flexible. More and more we're becoming a service-oriented nation. I have people that work for me in my company who live in Arizona and Portland, and that's what they do. Because of it's not a function of space or location anymore. So we need to think in terms of that kind of flexibility where classes are not, but there's still interactive opportunities. Following that, one of my main thrusts on the board is getting students the classes they need so they can get where they want to go, and you presented that. 75% want to transfer. Part of the dilemma that we face as an institution are state laws and processes that are 60 years old. We're trying to update the buildings, but the laws are based on this is where you sit, this is how you teach, this is how you get paid, you can't work more than this or that. We are trying to, as a board, set a priority that says the calendar is scheduled based on student needs and aligned to flexibility, not based on what you used to teach when you used to teach it, therefore the number of classes is limited. But that's a challenge not just for structures, that's a challenge for thinking and culture. That's a challenge that runs right up against state laws that are 40 years old that say this is how you will do it.
Yeah.
And so that's not the problem immediately that we're dealing with in this room, but that problem needs to be addressed and collaborated with, along with the vision of a flexible future, is flexible scheduling, flexible laws that aren't based on a manufacturing economy, because that's not what the United States is, and probably what the United States is going to be predominantly in the future.
Right.
So I appreciate hearing some of these comments, but I would sum it all up in a word is we've got to build flexible for things we haven't even thought of before, that isn't limited by space or even time.
Well, I think also that idea that it's flexibility, but also maintaining interaction, because I think there's certain people who could say, oh, we're going to go, everything's all tech, but I think you made the counter that also we have to maintain some of those interactions, those social interactions, and that's the challenge to our planners and designers, to how do we manage that flexibility and maintaining interactions. It's also part of the, as you said, the actual structure of our educational programming. I know she has a question right here.
Hi, so regarding increasing the college reputation and also the college value, I'm sure this comment was made at yesterday's meeting by Associated Students, but I would also like to say it here, that we would like an expansion of the cross-cultural centers and pathways. For example, for programs such as UGMA, it's a program for African American students. So I had a friend who was in it, and when he went to the counseling or the programs, it was just the little space in that corner. So I think if we expand it and we make it more visible, students would feel more proud of being in it, or they would like coming to school. For example, I'm a part of the lobby committee, and if you're more engaged in the college, then you would like coming to school more, and that the value of the college would increase because the students like coming here, and therefore they would create positive feedback. So, and I would also like to say that this was probably also mentioned last time, but I would like to see more gender-neutral restrooms, as I think that we should take into consideration our transgender students. They might not feel comfortable with the binary restrooms we have. So, yeah, that's all I'd like to say.
I'm going to expand that to just facilities, because it could be locker rooms as well. Would you agree? I'm expanding, yeah, I'm just say gender-neutral facilities, because it might just not be just restrooms. There could be other things as well. So any other folks? So we've talked about sustainability. We've also talked about this sort of idea of gathering and creating a college experience. How do we make our spaces better? Are there any things that we should be considering, and the panel should be thinking about that in terms of how we look outside of the buildings and those places in between? We'll be thinking about, somebody has talked about shade as such a critical thing. It's hot here. We enjoy the outdoors, but when you use a computer screen, it's hard to do that. Yeah. Right. Maybe let's get the microphone real quick.
I guess my question would be, how much thought has been given to unintended consequences in this whole grand scheme? Because those tend to play a major role in construction costs and facilities becoming, antiquated before necessary. As an example, the Shatford Library was mentioned. That facility is not that old. I watched it grow up. I did not grow up in Pasadena. I grew up in Chicago, but I moved here as a young adult. And I watched that library go up, and I thought, how beautiful. But I don't know if anybody in that whole planning process thought about the unintended consequences of what happens if this water system fails and the books get damaged. Some, I'm guessing, can't be replaced. So I'm just hoping, because I've been involved in the master plan at the PUSD, and I know that a lot of times jobs go to the lowest bid, and then the prices really go up a lot because of cost overruns, et cetera, that are parts of just not brainstorming and asking questions about unintended consequences. So I highly encourage that to be part of this whole thought process. Because, you know, I have to say, I think PCC is great. I hate seeing money wasted
Right.
as a result of no-brainer failures in planning for construction across the board for public facilities.
Right. I think that's a really, really good point, and I think it's actually increased the challenges there in terms of what we're looking to in the future. So if we're thinking of a holodeck, again, I'm just taking that out of the, well, okay, maybe that's completely ridiculous. That lasts for one decade even. And then it's gone and you have this really specialized space that you spend a gargantuan amount of money on because it was the thing of the future. Oops. You know, what do we do with that? So that unintentional consequence, I think, is actually a lot of people have mentioned it in different ways, but I like the way you've stated it here, you know, because we want to create this flexibility, but it's hard to pretend for things that we just don't know. And I guess at some point there's a leap of faith that we put into our ultimate designers and planners that they are thinking about that. And I guess as the trustees here, they're going to have to kind of give another thought of like, does this make sense? That's a challenge. I think it's a challenge, but it's something that we really need to think about for the future. And I think Ruben has mentioned adaptive management, adaptive spaces, so that maybe we aren't investing in super, super specialized spaces all the time, that we don't put all our eggs in one basket. So that's going to be a challenge.
And then the real opportunity now is that with our library, for example, how do we readapt that library? How do we adapt that library to the learners and the use of today? Very few people actually go into a library to do research anymore. They go in to collaborate, they go in to work together, so basically our opportunity now is what do we do with the library facility, which is I don't know how many square feet, but it's 80,000 square feet or wherever it is. So there's lots of opportunity with that space. So that's part of this process.
Exactly. So I'm going to actually have us start wrapping up in a few minutes so we can go and work with our planning architects, because I want to make sure that we don't get too late in the day and we have that time. But before we go, is there any other last thoughts or questions here? So you can race to get you the microphone first.
Yesterday, a number of people mentioned the off-site facilities, satellite, well, not actual campuses, but satellite facilities, and we have Rosemead as an example, or the CEC. To the extent we think about more of that as part of the facilities master plan for the college, we need to make sure as we do that, we focus very carefully on what courses, what types of courses are going to be taught there, and what types of students we expect to teach there, because there was a lot of discussion about what those facilities might need to have in the way of support activities and that sort of thing. But that goes right to the heart of, if this is a plan, what does that plan, and I suppose an educational master plan, the whole educational master plan, what does it say about what types of courses we expect to teach there and who the students are that are going to be taking those courses? That'll very much determine what those facilities ought to look like. And a point that I mentioned yesterday was that this might be an opportunity to do some kind of a survey of the college district to determine what existing educational, institutional type spaces are already exist that might not be fully utilized, that if we have courses being taught off the main campus could utilize those.
Yeah, so
we don't need to build new buildings if there's already space that is underutilized that somebody else has built and that we could lease.
Yeah, and I think that brought up a big point that came out yesterday, which is partnerships are critical for our future, be it with PUSD, Caltech, with other facilities, that we can't do it all ourselves. We shouldn't be doing it all ourselves. We should be looking at how we coordinate and partner on all of this. And we're not just building something new. It's about how do we look at each individual building for their strengths and make sure that they're the best building they possibly can to support our success. And when we need to expand, we have that opportunity. Yeah, hold on one second. Let me get you the, sorry.
Well, and it also speaks to the, I know I passed the facility on Foothill. And again, looking at the facilities that you have, what are the transportation options? You've got the Metrolink that could bring in a different, and could cater to and address more of the off-site that would be an assessment of that. And the other part is I know, again, that Foothill site is a lot of parking space. So could you perhaps look at that as one of the remote parking facilities and integrate that into your campus transportation program?
Absolutely. That's critical that we don't put new facilities where people can't get to them. Yes, sir.
I've noticed that in sort of our planning for the future, we're sort of not touched on the past, as was mentioned by Dr. Rocha. What are we doing to sort of preserve the historic fabric of the campus in planning for all this technology? Some of these spaces may require, reconfiguration or some demolition, I'm not sure, but it seems that we're not sort of taking into consideration the preservation of some of these older buildings.
Yeah, I think I think maybe we're all taking that for granted, and we shouldn't, because I think we have to be very intentional about maintaining that fabric, and I like that word. That's a very good approach, because it's not just about the buildings, it's the character, the form. We've heard about maintaining open spaces, that sense of the mirror pools is all about this historic fabric, and there's clearly places where we can do it better, making people more welcome, but this is something that's so central, we need to make sure that that happens very, very intentionally. Yeah.
Just for commenting on the satellite for facilities, I know they've offered classes at Temple City High School. I've only seen one class offered. There was a political science class, and I know my daughter took that class and it was full. I think they even had to turn some people away. But that's another option, to offer more classes at the local high schools that are feeding into this school, because obviously they're living in those communities at home with their parents.
Right, offer those classes with high schools. And that has a connection to helping maybe the high school students do that transfer as well. So let's hear one or two more quick comments, and then we'll move on to our next thing.
Akin to the last comment that was made, I know that the PUSD has closed campuses, and I'm wondering if those closed facilities that are basically sitting around as cost centers, if those centers if those closed facilities have been factored into this master plan. And, quite honestly, that's a possible usage for students who are transitioning from the PUSD special education department into other higher education opportunities, because I assure you, they want that experience. And you guys did talk about the level of unemployment for, I guess, general learners. It's probably triple that for students with any kind of disability, and even more so an intellectual delay.
Yeah, and so I'm going to actually put that as a separate, because I think that idea of transition spaces is really good, because it's not, sometimes it's harder for certain students to go from one environment to a totally different environment. And so creating a more comfortable and a pathway, as BCC has been doing, how do we create better pathways to transition students from one place to the other? And so I think that's a really good point. So I think what we've heard is there's a lot of opportunities. There's going to be a lot of challenges as we go forward with this. We have this great reputation, this great historic fabric that we can build from, and we have lots of opportunities. Our parking lots actually are an opportunity for us. We feel we're like a landlocked campus, but those parking lots are preserved space for us to create new experiences for college. And so how do we relayer those so we can actually get something more out of it? We clearly have college, we have some challenges. Access is a huge one, and we know that we are chipping away at that, and that might be through our satellites, better transportation alternatives, this technology, and this new opportunity of creating the college without walls and really flexible. So I think we have a lot to work with here. And right now I want to say, let's get up for a moment and give a little stretch, grab a quick coffee and a drink, and we're going to connect right over here, and we're going to talk with Gensler Associates first, And they're going to engage you in a great exercise they've done a couple times. And then we're going to move over to AC Martin, and they have another good exercise in HGA. And they have cookies over here, so you have to wait and stay to the end to make sure you get HGA's cookies.
Very, very grateful for it and open to it. And I do, as an old English teacher, I have a homework assignment especially for our neighbors who have taken time from a Saturday morning to come in, and I know how hard that is. Give your card, please, or contact info to Bob Miller, because my homework assignment is we're going to come out there. This is the beginning of the process, not the end. And I know you all have networks and Facebook pages and, all like that. And we want to make sure that, we access that and talk to more of your neighbors and those around you in your network to make sure that we're gathering all of the good input and questions we have to make this the best plan possible. So that's just my little tip. Just get Bob's card and send him an email, and we'll be able to, we'll even come into your living room and make a presentation. So thanks. Yeah.
And also, if you have a comment card, we'll be collecting those. You obviously don't have to get it to us right now, but grab your snack, and we'll be right over here.